Hey guys, it's Celestia, and you know what? It's been a while since I made a storytime video, so this month, you guys are getting 2. You're welcome. My life is a fascinating adventure, and I am blessing you all by sharing it. You know, I once actually got a second donut for free, when I only ordered one, and I just straight up ate both donuts. This is the kind of content I have to offer. Like and subscribe. Okay, anyway, today's story time is about the plethora of weird-ass experiences I've had with Ouija boards, because I was dumb enough to use one, not once, not twice, but like 10 fucking times. These stories need a lot of background, though, some of which briefly mention self-harm and hospitalization, so while they're only brought up in passing, proceed with caution if those topics are triggering for you. Alright. So we begin our story with 11 or 12-year-old Celestia, who just got invited to a sleepover birthday party. Which, for the record, when did people get too old for those? Why is it possible to get too old for those? If we're friends, and you're having a birthday, have a goddamn sleepover and I will be there with candy and an architectural plan with which to create the best pillow/blanket fort you've ever seen. Anyway, I'm at this birthday party and it's actually really cool, because the girl got a gigantic tent that fit all 6 of us with room to spare. And the sleepover was just camping in her backyard and hanging out, and it was really fun. We ended up playing a bunch of games like Cards Against Humanity and other similar stuff, and because we were stupid kids and it was made by Hasbro, we ended the evening by using a Ouija board. And objectively looking back, in fairness, it was almost exclusively as harmless as one would expect, given that we were a bunch of preteen girls probably pushing the planchette around ourselves. I mean, years later, at least 3 of them admitted to moving it themselves, so that's not even speculation. Regardless, it was convincing at the time, which is probably in large part because there was a lot of the spirits knowing dead family members' initials trope and similar bullshit going on. But we all also knew each other really well, and even if all of us didn't know those things about each other, there was always at least one person there that would have known the information being asked for. So I can pretty confidently dismiss it. There was one exception though, that I personally believe was the only real encounter we had with a spirit, which I believe for a few reasons. First of all, the planchette barely moved. Like, it was exceptionally slow. It was also the one time we didn't get a real name from the spirit when we asked for one, although we eventually got initials, which were WRW, which have been burned into my brain ever since because of how things turned out, to the point that I still remember them more than a decade later. I also distinctly remember that we figured out that he was male and Russian, although I could not tell you how his nationality came up, but whatever. Anyway, most of his answers were almost completely incoherent, unless it was a simple yes or no question, which at the time we chalked up to him being Russian and not fully understanding our English, but how would he understand yes or no questions then? I don't know. Regardless, like any good horror movie, our dumbasses eventually asked him to show us a sign that he was real. At which point, there was about 15 seconds of nothing. Nothing happened. Planchette didn't move at all. Nothing. And then there was this gigantic gust of wind that was so strong that the entire tent, with 6 girls in it, was blown completely over. Like the pegs were straight up ripped out of the ground by it. It was not a windy night. There had been no wind strong enough to even shake the tent before that. And while it absolutely could have been a coincidence, the timing and the severity scared the living shit out of us, and to me, it gave the whole situation some more credence. We weren't in any danger. The tent was in her backyard and like 10 feet away from her back door, but it was so abrupt and strong that it was still scary. And subsequently, the girl whose birthday it was, who I'll call T, was pretty goddamn freaked out, and also just very deeply uncomfortable in a way she couldn't fully explain. So she moved the planchette to goodbye and very adamantly demanded that we all go inside. A lot of us were more excited than scared, and we didn't really want to stop, but she was incredibly uneasy and we ended up giving in and going inside. It took us like 3 hours of hanging out inside and talking about what happened to convince her to go back out, but she ended up having such an intense physical reaction to what happened that she actually threw up. We did end up going back out eventually though. Anyway, the next morning we all went on a diabetes walk together because T was diabetic and we wanted to support her. And afterwards, because there were so many of us, we took different cars to get home. And my best friend and I went back to T's house with her dad, while the other girls went to pick up some snacks with her and her mom. Which meant that we were there alone with the tent, the Ouija board, and at least 10 minutes before anyone else got back. And I, the ever-curious buffoon, took that opportunity to harass my best friend into using it with me, because the events of the night before really got me curious. She did not want to, and I couldn't use it alone, so I was fairly relentless in trying to convince her anyway, and eventually she did give in. I just desperately wanted proof that WRW wasn't just someone moving the planchette, and I thought that if it was just us and we both honestly promised each other that we wouldn't move it ourselves, it would at least clear up some of the suspicion around the encounter's legitimacy. So we did, and I still remember feeling bad bad because she was so anxious the whole time. But we did manage to, supposedly, reach WRW again. The previous night, we had ended up trying to talk to him a second time when we had gone back out to the tent, and he had told T that he wanted to give her a message. But she got that horribly uncomfortable, uneasy feeling again. So, once again, to my frustration, despite the fact that she was objectively right to do so, she moved the planchette to goodbye before he could. So, when my best friend and I, now, asked for the spirit's name and confirmed that it was him again, the first thing I asked was what the message was. I distinctly remember there being such a huge wait where the planchette just didn't move at all, to the point that we almost gave up. But eventually, he very slowly spelled out, "Run." I apparently have no sense of self-preservation at all whatsoever because I had fucking follow-up questions and no intention of stopping. But my best friend was really freaked out and ended the session right there. We genuinely got into a huge argument about it because I really wanted to learn more, but ultimately that was the end of it and we were never able to contact him again, nor did we tell T about his message. Ironically, it was actually her idea to buy a brand new Ouija board of our own around 6 months later and try again. And given that 6 months was apparently not nearly long enough for me to develop some brain cells, I thought that was a great idea, and we did. So we used it, which I distinctly remember doing underneath her Christmas tree, which is a weird and super irrelevant detail, but whatever. Long story short, we tried for like half an hour and nothing happened. But the thing was $30, so we were not giving up there, and we invited 3 of the other girls that were at that party to come over and try again with us. They did, we tried it, still nothing. Then my best friend's parents had a guest of their own show up, so she told us to put it away, and in fairness, we did put it away. We just put it away directly into her bedroom to try again while she was still in the living room with the guests. We're very good at following instructions. So her room had a dimmer switch for her light, and naturally for atmospheric purposes, we dimmed it almost all the way down, cause you know, spooks. So we try again, and we finally got something after about a minute. They were incredibly slow at answering, and the only actual answer we got was the yes from when we asked if someone was there. Even that took a long-ass time for the planchette to get to. After that, as one does, we asked for a sign that it was really there. And at that moment, the lights changed. Like, really, really subtly, to the point that all of us thought we were imagining it. And then my best friend came back, got mad at us for doing it without her, and we ended the session. But later, when we were talking about what happened, we all ended up bringing up the lights. Now, in fairness, her light was super shitty and had a tendency to flicker and change dimness pretty often, but the light that we'd seen was tinged with this redness that we couldn't manage to replicate no matter how much we screwed around with it. We stopped using the Ouija board at that point, and the other girls went home, and that was the end of it again, for a while. After another few months, my friend and I brought the Ouija board over to my mom's house, as her own mother refused to let it be used in her house again after having had a family history of bad experiences and superstition with them. So we used it at my mom's house and tried to contact WRW again, and failed miserably, again. We didn't get into contact with anyone actually, which is a really boring and anticlimactic story given that it was the last time I ever used one. But that's not why I'm mentioning it. The important part of the story is that we brought it to my mom's house and used it there. Which brings us to the next segment of the story where things start getting objectively weirder. Now, I never had any bad feelings or bad vibes in my mom's house before that, with one notable exception. In the basement living room, we had a tiny little storage room branching off in the far back corner, and it was unfinished, so it didn't have a door. It just had one of those hanging string bead door divider things. Ours didn't have beads, just string, but same idea. Anyway, I was always uncomfortable in that area, despite nothing ever having happened there. And because my bedroom was in the basement, I used to stay up late and fall asleep on the couch facing that storage room a lot. And quite a few times, I would wake up staring at that storage room and seeing glowing eyes staring at me back from inside of it. I've always had on and off sleep paralysis, so I'm almost 100% sure that's all it was. But the uncomfortable feeling came long before the sleep paralysis. And my dog wouldn't go near the room, and often sat in front of it and just stared at it, so part of me wonders if there wasn't at least something more to it. All of that was only made worse when I had a couple of friends over, and we went downstairs to hang out and watch TV. One of the friends, who had never been over before, stared right at that storage room corner and told all of us to stay away from it. She wouldn't talk any more about it, but then another friend decided to be that guy and walked right into the storage room just to piss her off. At which point she physically pushed her out of the room and up against the wall and very, very angrily told her not to fuck around with that corner and that she wasn't kidding. It never occurred to me at the time that all of these bad feelings and weird experiences with that corner only started happening when we brought the Ouija board over. But in retrospect, there were never any problems with it before that, and I had been living there for a good while beforehand. And to be clear, she did leave the Ouija board there. It was in the basement ever since my best friend brought it over that night. Anyway, well, that was the last time anything happened with that corner, other than the sleep paralysis, which did continue. it wasn't the last time anything happened in that basement. In fact, the last big thing that did happen there was way scarier and is still one of the most terrifying moments of my life to this day. So, my ex and I were down there, sleeping on separate couches and watching some shitty B-movie about blood-sucking aliens, and out of fucking goddamn nowhere, in the middle of the night, there is a noise so inexplicably loud that we both had at least 3 consecutive heart attacks. It sounded like it was coming from my room, which was at the far end of the hallway and the furthest room from us in the basement. It sounded kind of like a banging and a rattling simultaneously, and we were eventually able to agree on describing it as what it would probably sound like if someone were trying to break through a wall with some kind of tool, but louder. And then it completely stopped. Like, horrifyingly loud noise, dead silence. And at this point, I was still rationalizing it, because our furnace was in another storage room in that same hallway, and I was about halfway through telling her that when it happened again. And it sounded a lot closer. And I mean, I think it doesn't need to be said here, but furnaces don't move. They make a lot of sounds, but they don't move. But this sound was making its way down the hallway towards us. And by now we were both scared shitless, and even when it stopped and it was dead silence again, neither of us could bring ourselves to move or even talk. Until it happened a third time, and it was so fucking close and loud that I literally jumped off of the couch and sprinted up the stairs. In retrospect, I had the awareness to make the conscious decision to take my blanket with me, while also straight up forgetting my ex existed and abandoning her down there with whatever was making the noise. Which says a lot about the strength of our relationship, but we're not together now and I guess that's why. Regardless, she did end up following me, and we both made it upstairs in time to slam that door shut. And within a goddamn second, the noise happened again from right on the other side of it. That was the last time either of us ever heard it, but we were so fucking terrified that we were in tears, and we just sat on the couch in the living room for probably half an hour in shock before we even started talking again. And I don't know why we decided to apply human logic to some fucking hellspawn basement demon, but we did, and we came to the conclusion that the only way it could get upstairs, so we're on the main floor, there's one more floor above us, the only way it could get up there was through that door that we had closed. And as such, we would be safe if we went upstairs ourselves, because it couldn't have gotten up there before us. So we went upstairs to the guest bedroom and stayed up in just silent fucking fear for about 4 hours or so before we ended up passing out. My mom's room was just down the hall from that, and we did try to wake her up first, but she basically just said, "Oh my god, it's nothing, go to sleep," which she still believes to this day, and that still pisses me off. But I mean, it sounds unbelievable, and she didn't hear it, so it's hard to blame her. Anyway, that was the last time I ever experienced anything in that basement, because shortly after I was hospitalized for a significant period of time, and then moved to my dad's, and then moved across the country when I met my partner. Looking back though, it's actually really interesting, because if it weren't for that experience in the basement leading us to go upstairs, my mom wouldn't have woken us up in the morning. Which sounds insignificant, but okay, background. I was struggling with self-harm at this time and normally slept in a sweater so that no one would see. But my ex knew about it, so I wasn't wearing one. And the one I was going to put on before sleeping was still in the basement. And when my mom found us there in the morning, she ended up seeing my arms. And this single event was why I ended up getting therapy, going inpatient, and eventually recovering. And like, I'm not saying the eldritch abomination in my basement was doing me a solid, but it's still interesting to think about, especially considering this last story here. So a few years down the line, and 14-year-old Celestia is inpatient for mental health in another city. My mom visits me on one of my first days there, and she brings me this stone cross. And she's not religious at all, so that was already weird. But then she explained that someone from her work just inexplicably gave it to her and told her they felt like she needed it. The same day, another person from her work told her that they had talked about me with their church group, because my mom had let them know that I was in the hospital. And a member who was known to have visions told them that he saw me surrounded by angels, but also that he saw demons with me. Ultimately, he felt that I was going to be okay. And while I'm not Christian, that feeling of hope and support at the beginning of what was a really long and hard journey for my mental health got me through a lot. Especially with the cross there to serve as a visual reminder whenever I looked at it. Anyway, after she talked with him, my mom coincidentally found the Ouija board when she was cleaning the basement. And out of some combination of stress and what he'd said about the demons, she decided to rip the paper layer with the alphabet and text and all that off, and then tear the thing into pieces and throw it out. And when I came back to town on a weekend pass from the hospital and stayed in her basement, it was the most comforting, peaceful feeling I had ever felt there. I had a crisis and almost had to go back to the hospital early, but my mom's help, combined with the relief of that space finally feeling clear and safe again, was enough to keep me stable and okay. And ever since then, I never had another bad feeling or experience in that basement again. And I have slept on the couch since then too. And there was nothing from the storage room. I know it's all probably coincidental, but the fact that two of the most pivotal, life-changing moments in my recovery from self-harm and mental illness were so closely related to something supernatural and borderline inexplicable still makes me wonder if there's something more to it. Anyway, the stories end with the brutal, violent death of that Ouija board, and I haven't experienced anything like that since, so I can only hope that it stays like that. Don't use Ouija boards, kids. I don't know what I believe in, but I know that as far as my personal beliefs go, those things are dangerous in ways I can't fully articulate or even understand. Learn from my dumb old mistakes. Get a spirit box instead. That's a joke. I'm pretty sure any kind of communication is probably bad. If someone says not to call a number, you probably just shouldn't switch to texting it instead. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, special thanks to channel members Cafe Soleil, Lotus Dreams Art, Joseph Solomon, and Adele Juarez for their support. Thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.